My name is Jonah Jonathan, and welcome once again to the Jazz Musician's Voice. Today we have the great opportunity to speak with Jazz Drumer Charles Goold, a good friend of mine and a really up-and-coming drummer on the New York scene. Actually a player who's been around for quite some time on the scene. He's the son of the legendary saxophonist Ned Goold, and Charles is really a swinging drummer, has a lot of great info and things to share about his life experience. And we're doing this interview today over Skype, so I really hope you guys enjoy it. Obviously with Skype we sometimes deal with connection issues, but that's just the nature of the game, and I hope you guys will be able to learn something from the mastery of this young drummer, Charles Goold. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned. We have a lot of new feature content coming up. Ladies and gentlemen, today I have the wonderful opportunity of speaking with a real great friend of mine and really one of the top upcoming drummers in New York City, Charles Goold. It's been quite a while. We've known each other probably well over 12, 13 years now.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I know. It's at least 12. Probably 13.
Well, I when I started William Patterson in New Jersey, I would come into the night sessions, and you were playing with your dad, Ned Goold, at Fat Cat. So that's where I first met you, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But let's go back a little bit and get a preface for people who don't know much about you. Talk about your early beginnings. Where were you born? You were born in New York or New Jersey? Because I knew you were in both places.
Yeah, I was born in Manhattan, New York, at Mount Sinai. And I spent my first 5 or 6 years in the city. And then my parents didn't really want to pay for like private schooling and all that. And my dad had just, like Harry Connick Jr. had just stopped the jazz thing for a little while. So my parents were pretty desperate, and so they moved down to Maryland for 5 years, down to Columbia, Maryland. Yeah, and then they couldn't take the suburbs of Maryland anymore, so they tried to move back to New York City, but everything was too expensive for them at the time, and they didn't want me and my brother going to bad schools because they couldn't afford private schooling, weren't familiar with the whole system of applying for all the schools and stuff. So they moved up to Jersey instead.
Yeah, that was Rutherford, right? Or East Rutherford, New Jersey,
yep.
Right?
Clifton for a year, and then Rutherford for 7 after that.
Wow. So, well, I mean, you kind of had the luck of being the son of tenor sax player Ned Goold.
I did have
the legendary Ned Goold. So you must have been, I'm pretty sure you must have been exposed to jazz from the time of being a baby, especially, I know Ned had quite a few famous roommates, So you must have, that must have been an experience. Talk about some of your earliest memories of jazz.
Oh, man. Well, I mean, it's funny you say that because there was, I don't know if we still have it, but there was one VH tape of me as a baby, that they were able. I saw it. I can't remember the last time I saw it, maybe 15 or 16 years ago. We moved so many times that we probably lost it, but it's just a video of me 8 days before my brother's born, and we're in my parents' new apartment at the time, so the whole place is empty, and I'm maybe a year and a half old. And I'm running around, and all you hear in the background for the whole video is Charlie Parker. So gives you an idea of what was going on. Jerry Weldon's hanging out in the video as well.
Wow.
It's
like
1990. Yeah, so I was definitely exposed to jazz.
And your dad had been playing with Connick Jr. and what was he doing at that time when you were a kid? Were you able to go to any of his shows, or do you have any memories of some of that?
I went to a ton of Harry Connick gigs, shows. I mean, my dad would be on tour with them for months at a time and stuff, so we had to get it in however we could, seeing my dad or whatever at that time. But I remember more so when my dad joined the band again, like probably around 96, 97. There was like a little hiatus when Harry was doing more of a funk thing, rock thing. But I got to see the Harry Connick's band like quite often. I sat in with the band one time too, actually, when I was
Wow.
12. When I was 12, yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Mhm.
Well, what was it that made you decide to take up the drums of all instruments? And who were some of your role models on the drums? And how did that come about?
Well, I'll admit that I was one of those kids who wanted to literally do every single thing like my dad, right? So I wanted to, I followed everything he did. And so I started on saxophone. But it was so hard. It was so hard in the beginning to get a sound, And I had played a little drums. Like my uncle had bought me like a little bongo drum when I was, 4 or 5 years old or whatever. But once I started trying to play saxophone and just seeing how hard it was going to be just to make a sound and to like get a note out and, be able to tongue notes and stuff like that. When I started going to my dad's gigs, because he didn't have a babysitter or whatever, I saw the drums, and you just hit it, and it makes a sound. So like, oh, this is easy. Let me start playing drums instead. And little did I know how untrue it was that the drums were easy. But the first guy I really started watching was Jimmy Lovelace, actually. He used to play with my father quite a bit in the mid-'90s. So I would go and see Lovelace a lot. And my first teacher, like official teacher, was Leroy Williams, actually, drummer with great Barry Harris. And man, that was a priceless experience to get to go over to his house every weekend at 11 years old. Because actually, like the first guy who taught me my rudiments, some of my rudiments was Ben Wolf, believe it or not. Ben Wolf likes playing drums.
Great bass player. Yeah,
he's my godfather. So he showed me how to play a paradiddle and a double paradiddle, and I bought stick control or whatever. But then when I was going over to Leroy's house, my dad hooked it up for me to be able to go to Leroy's house. We would work a little bit out of the syncopation book, work on some independence, maybe like 1 or 2 measures a week. I'd have to practice, and then he would sit down and just solo for me for like 30 minutes and just play. And I would just stand right above his shoulder and just watch everything he was doing, getting his feel and just checking out everything. And that was always my favorite part of the lesson. I just wanted to like skip through all the part I was playing just so I could watch him play and do his thing. Man.
Absorb all that.
Yeah. I actually have to give a shout out also to Phil Stewart, who gave me a lesson right before I started going to Leroy. Forgot to say that.
Oh, cool. He used
to play with my dad back in 2000. 99. And I remember he showed me just like kind of arm motions and just getting sound, but I wasn't ready for all the crazy technical stuff he had to show me. But just getting to watch Leroy and just be around him was really, really great. He would come to some of my little gigs sometimes too, and just throw out all these little tidbits. He would just say, Charles, colors, colors. What about the colors? And I'm like, what is he talking about? This is drums. I'm like 12, 13. I don't know what colors means, in a musical setting. So, yeah, him and Lovelace and also Jimmy Wormworth. I took a couple lessons with Jimmy Wormworth, and I would just go see Jimmy all the time to see him play. And he actually gave me one of my first gigs. He let me sub for him one time. I was 12. And he had shown me like the 4 strokes of like how to approach rudiments, like a full stroke, an upstroke, downstroke, and a tap. And I would practice that like crazy throughout my teenage years. And I feel like that, I still carry a lot of that kind of sound from those older guys,
Well, that's really great. I mean, and then, even from a young age, young age of 14, you were playing already professionally with Harry Whitaker, the late great Harry Whitaker.
Man, actually, I was playing with Harry.
Talk about those gigs.
I was playing with Harry when I was 11, actually. So
Oh,
he was
wow.
my actual like first real gig. He would let me play with him on Sundays, and he would give me the tip jar, or like Arturo's. So I went there every Sunday, and I just played with him. I think it was a 5-hour gig, and I would just play snare drum and hi-hat with him for 5 hours. And then my brother would play his original compositions during the break. My brother would play piano during the break, and I would play snare drum and hi-hat with Harry. And that, I mean, I wish I knew what I was, what I was getting. I had no idea. I took it for granted, but that was a great experience for sure.
Yeah, that sounds like quite the hang. And, Harry Whitaker is one of those guys. I remember a few experiences with him. Real no nonsense, like if you don't know the tunes, but when he liked something he heard, he would always give you encouragement,
Yeah, big time.
So that must have been a good experience for you, And
yeah,
then,
man,
I mean, you've been actually a member of playing with your father for over 16, 17 years at Fat Cat Jazz Club.
Yeah.
Playing with the great Ned Gould and every Wednesday night there. And that must be quite the experience because, your father has quite the eclectic taste in music, the early bebop stuff, but also his own style and his own original compositions.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, I'm super lucky, man, to one, have a regular gig in general for 17 years, and two, get to play with my father. It's definitely an amazing experience. I don't even know where to start, honestly. But I will say that we actually had a regular gig before Fat Cat. We used to play at Smalls before Fat Cat. I was playing at Smalls every Saturday with my dad when I was around from 14 to 15. I was doing that with him, and it was me, our father, originally Mike Karn and Sasser Perry, and then eventually Neil Kane started doing the gig. So I was getting to play every Saturday with Neil and my dad and Sasha. So that was an unbelievable experience. And I will say, like, it's my dad's, commitment to what he's into, commitment to whatever the artistic phase he's in is really, really, really impressive, man. He's like probably the purest artist I know, and he's a definite genius. And, our Monk was always playing in our house. Like, we always were hearing Thelonious Monk.
Yeah.
That era with Charlie Rouse and Frankie Dunlop and Ben Riley, that was always playing in our house, and when we were driving around. So that was just the feel, of the household kind of thing. And then to mix that with my dad's crazy atonal concepts is, I guess it's kind of strange to grow up hearing that type of stuff all the time. But also, the thing that's been great about playing with my dad every week is that, this as a sideman, it can be kind of constricting when you're trying to satisfy the leader, or you think you're satisfying, this and that. Whereas my dad's gig is the one gig where I feel like I can literally try anything I want, that he'll trust me to just go for it. And he encourages me to go for more stuff rather than just, it may not seem like it, like to like the outside listener, when you come in, you seem like we're just tipping or whatever, but we're every week exploring something. We've been exploring something different. I bring something new that I've been practicing or whatever, and it's a very elastic kind of feel,
Yeah, I mean, quite some really great concepts. I've got a chance to play with you and your dad a few times.
Yeah, Moldy Fig.
Yeah, and your dad also experiments with like the wah on the saxophone, which is pretty cool. And
Hmm.
man, in addition to that, I mean, it must be have been quite the experience playing at a place like Fat Cat for so long. It's just quite a watering hole where so many musicians come through, and you get a chance to meet people, and there's girls there, and there's all sorts of stuff. Talk a little bit about that experience, how that also shaped your your early upbringing. You know, being able to perform so frequently in a place like that.
Man, it was great. I got to give a shout out to two guys who had me playing a Fat Cat before my dad. I was doing the jam session. So I don't know if did you ever go to Fat Cat when the wall was still up, separating the music from the rest of the club?
I think it was right before my time because when I first got to New York, I think that was right when Fat Cat was like closed for a little bit and just reopening. The
Okay.
reopened area.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you just missed it. So for those of you that don't know, it used to be, so Smalls was closed for a little while. And so Mitch went over to Fat Cat, and they just had this room they weren't using in the back. It was just a long, like where you see the music now. Just imagine where like the piano is, just the whole band where the piano is facing the other way, right? And so it was just this long kind of hallway, and Mitch, the previous owner of Smalls, took music over there for a little while and started it there. And so it was like 10 or 15 bucks to go in and see the music. And it was one of the creepiest, like, New York underground jazz spots you could ever think of, man. These super old couches from the streets and stuff, and you would just get these really weird, really weird characters going in there for the jam session and stuff. And so I started playing there with Don Hahn, but he hated that room so much that he would make us take the instruments out of that room and into the main room, and we would just play for like the maybe 5 or 6 pool players over there. And we would just play there, right? And I also did the jam session every Friday and Saturday for a summer. I guess I was 16. Yeah, I must have been 16, and I was doing it with Jade Senselstein, the leader of the Fat Cat Big Band. We did the jam session every Friday and Saturday there. And, so I'm there on Friday and Saturday, 16 years old, till 3, 4 in the morning. So I saw some craziness there, man. I mean, I saw guys smoking pipes that I don't know what that smell was. It was not marijuana, just in the middle of the audience, just to some of the strangest stuff. But it was, again, another great experience getting to play there. And so that was the beginning. So playing with once they took the wall down, my dad started playing there regularly. And some of the craziest things I've ever seen were at Fat Cat. I've seen like, for some reason, I've only seen men get naked there, but for some reason I've seen that on 2 different occasions. Guys just getting naked in the middle of the club for some reason. Never a girl, but 2 separate occasions that happened. I've seen fights. I've seen people throw pool balls at each other, pick up pool cues. I saw Montez Coleman body slam Sasha Perry one time on the floor. I've seen some crazy stuff, and I've been part of some crazy stuff there too.
Yeah. The audience there that is watching this doesn't realize may not realize where Fat Cat is, but Fat Cat is smack in the center of the West Village, and if you're there at night, you know that's where the gay and trans people are. And I've seen the weirdest things. I've seen bearded wizards. I've seen all sorts of stuff, and people do end up in that spot. I've also seen musicians stealing money from the tip jar and getting thrown out. I've seen all sorts of stuff over there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is something that was of interest to me. Like when I did my thesis, did the history of the Harlem jazz scene,
Mm.
and boy, it's a completely different world. And I think a place like Fat Cat or St. Nick's Pub or some of those spots where you really get the gritty part of the jazz scene. It's kind of going away now, but
Yeah, well, I mean,
you,
it's pretty gritty right now out there, you know. So,
yeah, I mean, well, it's gritty now with coronavirus, for
yeah.
sure. Talk a little bit about you. You actually had a period of time where you kind of really were focused on sports and track, and you went to Tempe University for a while, and then you
Yeah.
transferred to Berkeley School of Music for a little while.
Yeah.
Um, how was that experience being away from New York a little bit?
It was great, man. I mean, I admit I was depressed because I didn't get not being able to play, you know,
Mhm.
not being able to play music. I didn't realize how much I liked playing music until I kind of gave it up and was just doing sports at Temple University down in Philly. And it was, it definitely hardened me for sure. Like, I'm out running 60 to 80 miles a week, uh, in the dead of winter, you know, uh, but it was definitely it was a silver lining because I actually ended up learning how to play electric bass when I was at school because I had nothing. That was my only way to play music, so I was just learning like transcribing funk bass lines and stuff like that. Um, and I definitely missed playing gigs, playing with people, and
Mhm.
I pretty much decided like halfway through my first year at Temple that I wanted to go to school for jazz, and I actually tried to apply to Temple's jazz program, but Terrell Stafford was not the head of the program yet. So the other guy who was the
Mhm.
head was a much more uptight like classical guy, and I met in his office and I was like, please let me audition, but I think this was like I must have asked like February or something, and the deadline was January, something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
or it might have,
too long.
yeah, it might have even been December. I don't know, but it was just they wouldn't let me apply. So I was just like, dang, what's the earliest I can get out of here and go to a music school? And I saw that Berkeley accepted you could come in at the spring, and no other school did that. I think New School might have done that, but I don't know. For some reason, I didn't apply there, but I should have though. I would have been in school with a bunch of my like friends now, but
Yeah.
I ended up going to Berkeley spring 2009, and that must have been when we met, man. Was that period between Temple University and Berkeley because I was going out every night to New York to the sessions.
Yeah, we had quite the experience. We were going out to the clubs, and then we would go to nightclubs after, and
Yeah,
it was quite a
Webster
fun
Hall.
experience. Webster Hall and
Yeah, yeah,
Hotel Gansler.
yeah.
Um,
So that must have been when we met, man. Because
yeah,
remember, we used to hit all the jam sessions though. We would start. Did we
yeah.
start? Would we start uptown or downtown? I don't remember.
Uh, it would be different. Sometimes we start uptown, like at Cleopatra's Needle or Smoke, and then go down to
And you go down to
Smalls
the
and Fat Cat, or
yeah.
we would do the opposite.
Remember when we went to Minton's, the old Minton's for the Guinness World Record
Yeah,
jam session?
yeah. That the what was it? More than what was it supposed to be like 72 hours or something?
Yeah, that was a mess.
Yeah, yeah. And then I mean, I used to learn a lot from your dad. I mean, because I would give you guys rides home on my way home to the Bronx and then to
Right, I remember
Harlem.
that. I remember that. Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
we'd get your dad's view on music and such. But for a time, you weren't in school and you were just playing a lot. But then you made the smart decision to get into Juilliard,
Hmm.
and I really think that must that paid off for your whole
Life.
everything, life and playing, because now you are working so much. So talk to us a little bit about Juilliard and how it developed your career as an artist.
Sure. Well, I want to say this first to anyone who ever watches it. I did not get accepted my first time around. I auditioned twice to Juilliard. And but miracles can happen, I guess. And I was able to get in the second time. But the first time, I messed up because I was actually playing the Dizzy's late night that whole week with my father for the first time. I was getting to play the Dizzy's late night. And, I probably got home at 2:30 the night before my audition. And I get a call at 8:45 in the morning, like, from Ben Wolf, like, "Where are you?" And I'm in bed. I'm like, yeah. And I think I was first. I think I was the first guy. I think I was 9 a.m. And so I hop in a cab. I get there at like 9:02, and they send me back home. They say, "Go put on a suit and come back." So I come back at like noon or whatever. I get a call back. I wait all day, and then I eventually didn't get in. But I was able to get in the second time about 4 years later. So that, it was perseverance. I decided to give it one more shot. But Juilliard was amazing, man, because a lot of things, like getting to really study again with someone every week, like I had been doing with Leroy, was really great. Getting to study with Billy Drummond for 2 years and then Kenny Washington for one. It was really great just to be around those guys and just see the way they think about music and the way they hear drums, and they're both very different drummers as well, and like both of them, we would just sit and listen to records and, really like dissect things and really think about music differently. And also with Juilliard, I got to take a lot of classical courses. So it just opened my ears up like crazy. I really started to hear harmony a completely different way and hear music and like kind of hear messages in music a lot differently than I did before. And also the network it gave me was incredible, man. All because like, I don't know, at Juilliard, it's like, it seems like there's every other academic environment I'd ever been in before Juilliard, it was kind of like a thing of like, oh, it's kind of like uncool to like get good grades or want to try hard or do this and that. And Juilliard was the first place where the exact opposite, where it's like if you weren't shedding or if you weren't on top of your stuff, everyone would look at you like that, like you're uncool for not doing your work. So I thought that was really, really cool about Juilliard. I admit I was going pretty crazy there because I was still trying to keep all my gigs. I was already working full time before I got into Juilliard, but I had seen a ceiling of what I could do. I was already working regularly with Johnny O'Neill at the time, but I had seen a ceiling of where I could go and what I could do, what I could accomplish. I wanted to start my own band, write my own music. So I just decided to do it, but I wasn't even telling people I went to Juilliard when I was there. I didn't want people to think that I couldn't do the gig because like I didn't have.
So you don't want to think you're in school.
I don't want people to think I'm in school, So I didn't have help with rent, so I was working every night, still doing all the jam sessions. I mean, my schedule was probably most days either 8:45 to like 8:45 a.m. to 4 a.m. for 3 years straight.
It's quite a dedicated lineup of things, but I mean, we will we can go first and talk about Johnny O'Neill, but after that we'll get into some of the connections out of Juilliard because now you are playing with the Jazz and Lincoln Center Orchestra sometimes with Wynton Marsalis, so quite the feat, man. So talk a little bit about playing with Johnny O'Neill, because you guys were fortunate enough to play quite a few venues in New York and also touring around the globe. So what were some things that you learned from Johnny?
Man, again, where do I start? Especially, I mean, playing with Johnny, I feel like every bassist and drummer should try their hardest to have the experience of getting to play with Johnny a little. Like this, I mean, you know, even if just for a couple of dates, but it's just because he just really, really, really like smooths out all the little deep fine details about playing jazz, swinging jazz, and more like for bassists, I've noticed that it's like it'll just open guys' ears up like crazy and really get them in that Ray Brown kind of zone of playing like the perfect notes and playing good time and stuff like that, and playing on the bottom and stuff like that. But really opening up your ears, especially in the ballads, because Johnny will just play so many alternate changes, and you never know where he's gonna go. And like, yeah, that's the biggest thing with Johnny is that he's the most spontaneous. I think he might be the most spontaneous musician I ever played with. I mean, it's unbelievable. And as a drummer, he just opens up your ears so much. He forces you to listen like crazy. Because as drummers, we have a tendency to fall into listening to ourselves and like, all right, I'm gonna play this thing I practiced last week, or I'm gonna, what am I gonna, who's that chick in the audience, or what am I gonna go cook later at home or whatever stuff, or I want to drink, And with Johnny, you have to be on your toes the entire time because he can go from triple F forte down to piano pianissimo like that, and if you're not listening, you're gonna look like a fool. So like he forces your dynamic range to just open up so much, and he forces you to have clarity and like really gets your brushwork together, and you just have to do. And then he also kind of plays like the piano like a big band at times also. So he's getting your big band playing together, and he's always on top of you about swinging at the end of the day. And it's a different kind of swing. It's like this Midwest kind of Detroit. It's almost like you're playing a shuffle beat without playing the backbeat behind it. But that's just like this intense quarter note and tight shuffle. He would tell me that my beat was too open sometimes. He said I need to just close the gaps. He would tell me that a lot. And then, then you play with other people and they want you to play wider. They want your beat to be wider. It's like, oh, your beat's too tight. So playing with Johnny, it prepared me it opened up a whole world for me, man. Like once I started playing with Johnny, then I started getting a lot of calls from vocalists because they would go to see Johnny and want to sit in with him. And they saw how well I played with him and how much I started paying attention to things, like playing dynamically. So I started getting a lot of gigs with vocalists from that. And then through Juilliard, I mean, basically, once I got the gig with Johnny, it kind of gave me a new sense of legitimacy in the scene. Like, I could play before I played with him. But no one ever was like, oh, that's just Ned's son. Like, they still remember me from when I was...
under your dad's view.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that's Ned's son. They still saw me as the 14-year-old who was playing, with my dad or whatever. So once I got the gig with Johnny, we were getting to play at Smalls and Smoke every weekend, and Minton's as well, and Red Rooster. It just started to give me a sense. People started trusting me more, and I started getting a lot more calls with different people. And then once I got in Juilliard, they gave me the next level of legitimacy. People like, oh, he goes to Juilliard. Maybe he can read too, And which Juilliard definitely helped me with because I could not read very well. I still can't read that well, but I really couldn't read back then. And then once I got that, once I was at Juilliard, I ended up doing a gig, one of their big band gigs, where it was a tribute to Gene Krupa, I believe. Not Gene Krupa, sorry, Benny Goodman, and Paul Whiteman, like really like trad type of stuff. And Wynton was the guest conductor for that concert. So he saw how much I put into the concert, and I think that kind of gave him like, oh, okay, maybe I could, maybe he could do something, one day with me. And I actually one day I was sitting in one of the practice rooms at Juilliard when I first got there, and I was like, you know what? I bet I'm gonna play with Jock one day. That's gonna happen. I just envisioned it, and then 4 years later, I'm playing a little private party for a kind of a Jock fundraiser, and Isaiah Thompson, unbelievable pianist that I went to school with for 3 years, he asked me to do the gig, and it's just a little party. We're just playing whatever. Wynton shows up, we're hanging out, and I just I told him like, hey man, like I'd love to play sometime. I texted him asking about some advice on how to release a record or whatever like that. And he was like, oh, sorry, I didn't answer. But I was like, yeah, man, we should play sometime. We should talk. And he was like, yeah, bro. And that was it. And then 2 days later, I get an email from Lincoln Center. Wynton would like you to tour with the group.
Wow,
in September.
Man.
And I was like, whoa, I didn't mean like that, but sure, yeah, I'll play.
Yeah,
I'll play with you guys. But that's how it went down.
Yeah, because there was kind of an opening. Ali Jackson had left the group, right? And you were kind of subbing.
Yeah. Well,
and you have done a lot of playing with that.
That was when they were doing the open auditions and stuff. So it was a very weird and kind of stressful time to deal with that, because I was doing the tour, I was doing the gig with them, but then they were also holding the auditions at the same time. So I had to submit an audition, and then my audition tape didn't even make it, but I was still doing the tour with them. It was a very strange situation. Yeah. I mean, I don't. Yeah. It was wild, a lot. But it was great, man. Unbelievable.
And to be able to travel to some of these places too. I mean, that's a great experience. And I mean, talking about working in New York, I mean, you're certainly one of my favorite drummers to play with, and we've worked together many times.
Yeah, man.
But you're working with other cats too. Like you work regularly with Steve Nelson, great vibe player, who played with Mulgrew quite a bit, and you play quite often. In fact, you had Steve Nelson on your debut recording that is still coming out. Talk about your debut record, because that's great, definitely of interest,
Yeah, man. So I wrote about 7 originals, and I did 3 standards. And it was basically just a culmination of my experience at school, finally learning some harmony and stuff, and just. And when I was at Juilliard, it really opened up my eyes to like writing music for something, or with like some type of purpose, some type of message behind it, or some type of motive, And so it was really, once I started getting that under my fingers, and I got to study with the great Kendall Briggs, who's like the world's foremost expert on Bach and counterpoint and stuff like that. So getting to study with him, it just like opened me up completely on how to write compositions, especially how Bach would he was all about form, and then he would fill in everything afterwards. So I kind of took that and ran with it, and then interjected my own styles. And then also, my mother's from Haiti, and I got to go there when I was 28 with a non-for-profit organization called Experience IET. And I got to go and meet a lot of family I'd never met before, and got to see the island for the first time. And I got to listen to, I got exposed to the music called Ra Ra, which is like one of the traditional Vodou rhythms from Haiti that Haitian pop music, compa, is based on. And I already knew about compa. Like my dad, that's how my parents met. My dad played in a super famous compa band in the 80s, and my mom was at one of the concerts or whatever. And so, so I've been listening to the pop stuff my whole life. I always liked it. But then when I heard the real like street carnival traditional stuff, I was like, man, this could work really well with jazz, man. If I started incorporating some of these rhythms and feels, and I started sneaking in at gigs, and people would always turn and look at me like, man, what is that groove? And that's like, yeah, that's the Haitian stuff, man. So
Yeah.
my title track, Sequence of Events, on that album highlights that. But the rest of the album is just kind of like a potpourri of everything, all my experiences. Like I do a trio tune that harkens back to my days playing with Johnny. I have another tune that kind of I wrote a song to dedicate it to Lawrence Low Leathers, and it's a ballad, and it kind of just, I don't know what I always saw him as, and then I did a track that showed my amateur ability at odd meter. I did a Joe Henderson tune. We did it at 7 or whatever. So I'm just trying to showcase what I can do. And I wrote another tune about police brutality, but I kind of did it in a way that Wynton kind of thinks about writing things. Like whenever I would listen to him talk about writing compositions, every section or every melody had some type of reason behind it. It was always a representation of something. So when I wrote that tune, I was really kind of thinking of him. And like the tune, if you listen to it, I take the Africans who were brought over from Africa, right? That's the 6/8 section. Then I have the swing section. You're seeing the African Americans, and then at the end is more of a Latin Caribbean. And you're seeing the Afro Caribbean side. And the point of it is to say that all of those cultures are being affected by police brutality, and they're all inextricably linked. So again, the album is just a lot of that, like I'm just exploring every different type of music I like to do, kind of trying to get out of my typecast a little bit, but at the end, I just hope people. And I have another one I wrote dedicated to my dad, it's called Nedistic instead of sadistic, Nedistic.
Nedistic.
Yeah, Nedistic, yeah. So I think people will dig it a lot.
When is that full release coming out? Or is that coming soon? Or?
So I had a whole campaign, man. I had a Dizzy's release show, CD release on June 2nd. I had the whole plan. So I released the first single like last week of February. So, and then I was promoting that. It was getting a lot of people were digging it. I was going to release another single around May, and I had a whole PR campaign, and I was going to release a record in June, and then see if I could start, maybe I'd get it to a label, get it on the radio, see if I could tour. I had the whole thing planned, but once COVID hit, it's like, man,
COVID-19, man.
I spent too much money on the record to just release it out, to just release it. I paid for everything up front. Yeah. So, like, unless it has the proper promotion, and if I can have some type of CD release where I can at least sell a little bit of physical CDs and film that and be able to use it for further promotion. And again, it's like once you have your own, I feel like, I don't know, I may be wrong, but like as a leader, I've set my legitimacy as a sideman, right? I've played with some of the best in the business, but now I got to start over and to set my legitimacy as a leader, and I'm at the very, very bottom right now, so I don't want to just put something out without having any sort of thing that sets me up for people to be like, oh, okay, he might be for real,
Yeah. Well, yeah, COVID affected quite a few things, and I wasn't in New York at that time, but I've read quite a bit and heard from people. Must have been quite the challenge being in kind of a ground zero for coronavirus epidemic.
Yeah, it was very scary.
Talk about some of that time, I know you did some virtual stuff with people, and you have been making some of these short 70s inspired videos with the you're playing electric and keys, and you play guitar, all of it together and singing on it. It's a pretty cool concept.
Yeah, man. I just well, since Corona happened, it's like been my first break in 13 years, really, or 12 years, I guess you could say. And so it kind of just took me back to back when I was a teenager and just trying to learn how to play again with basically no responsibilities. And so it's like I was just having fun again, recording all these songs. And uh, I love late 70s, early 80s. I just love soul, funk, and disco like a lot, and blues and stuff.
Yeah.
And like I was saying before, when I was at Temple, I started learning all this stuff on bass. Like Parliament Funkadelics, like my favorite band ever. So I was learning all these bootsy bass lines, and then I started learning slap bass lines and stuff like that. And then I eventually got into guitar a little bit. But with guitar, it was hard because I had so little knowledge of harmony that I kind of was stuck to just, triads and a couple seventh chords. But after going to Juilliard, being able to learn harmony and stuff, now when I go on the guitar, I still can't really play it, but at least I know which notes I'm supposed to play. And so I can practice that and get that together. And these recordings that I've been doing, I just wanted to see if people will be into these 70s inspired things. People seem to really respond to it. So I'm going ahead and I'm going to make like a whole album of this type of stuff that isn't, I think I'm going to release like all the comedic ones, just the minute long Instagram ones. And then I'm going to release a whole other one that's like actual like music, my own message.
Great.
But also I got to mention, so not only was I getting a lot of feedback on that, but I was getting a bunch, probably even more feedback with my Instagram live show that me and Jason Brown did together. We did about 18 weeks straight throughout Corona, just talking for an hour, hour and a half, just about drums, and we were getting a lot of response on it. And so we're actually putting out a book on August 7th. We're putting out a kind of a modern jazz drum instructional book, just basically giving you a viewpoint into our minds and the way we think about playing drums. And it's going to be set to be a 5-volume set. This is going to be the first one. So it kind of just introduces you to the hands first. And then once you get this down on the snare, and you start moving the stuff around the toms and the cymbals and the bass drum, and things start to get a little crazy. So really, really excited about that. August 7th is we're praying we can get it out by then. Two sides of the same coin. That's gonna be the name of the book. So I think that's gonna be people are gonna like that one.
That should be great. And for people who don't know, you also your younger brother is a good friend of mine too, Albert Goold, and he had his band Solid Gould for quite some time that you were a member of, and that's great content. And, you're working on so many projects there in New York. You're also signed to the Canopus drums, right?
Canopus
sticks.
Canopus drums, Vader sticks, and Zildjian cymbals. Shout out to all you guys. Thanks for all your support over the past year and a half. They've been super dope, and their instruments are incredible tools.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and you're living.
I want to give a shout out to my little brother, man, because his band Solid Gould is amazing, and I've actually learned a ton about music from Albert. And I don't know, I think I'm really influenced a lot by him, not really the other way around, because like a lot of my musical ideas or stuff I come up with, like, man, that sounds just like Albert, man. Jeez, even my voice sounds like him when I sing. So I definitely got to give Albert a shout out. If you guys haven't checked out his music, Solid Gould, you should. He's an incredible mind, and he makes incredible music. It's very unique.
Yeah, we certainly will try to get him on the this Jazz Musician's Voice series, because Albert is a good friend of mine, and sometimes he sends me some of his stuff he's doing, and I really dig it. Pretty smart guy, and also great sound engineer.
Yes.
Before we end up, how was it the new normal in New York? Playing these gigs with a mask for a long period of time, that must be quite the challenge as a drummer. I mean, hot weather and mask. And you recently played at Smalls Jazz Club, their live stream.
Yeah. I played recently with Steve Nelson, and before that I played with Ehud Asheri. And it's really tough, man, to play without an audience. It really is. And it's also really tough to play after 3 to 4 or 5 months of not playing regularly again. I mean, you can practice as much as you want, but in a way, I felt like practicing almost kind of messed me up a little bit because my brain was just not ready for other people's ideas, like at all.
Yeah.
It wasn't ready at all, and I was just, it's been tough for sure. And the only gigs that are available right now, besides maybe a live stream through a venue, is just like maybe outdoor stuff at restaurants. But a lot of them are kind of increasingly illegal right now. Like every day, you don't know what the rule is going to be because people are confused. People are going crazy, and people just want to be out finally. But then other people are really scared, and then then you don't know what musicians are still even in town, and it's just, man, the whole thing has been really, really tough. But at the same time, there's been this sense of like this amazing sense of like more togetherness. Like I've never seen jazz musicians more just happy to be around each other. Like no vibing, no like none of that. Like everyone's just happy to just be able to do anything. And I mean, Wynton used to talk about that quite a bit. He would talk about the Depression era musicians, the swing guys, is that there wasn't nearly as much of like the coldness between them. He would always talk about like how they were more into playing together because I guess they're in such a terrible time that they were just all about the swing. And I think it's the same thing is happening right now, man. Every time I play with people, it's just like everybody's just overjoyed to play.
Grateful to play,
Grateful to play, man. Yeah.
We will see what happens with the supposed round 2 that may be coming in the fall.
It's coming, man.
It's unfortunate what's happening to the clubs, especially like Smalls, and hopefully there will be some legislation to give some of these places a break and loans at least.
Yeah, man. I don't even want to get into it.
Quite
I get so mad.
Business owners. Some of these business owners who are friends with Trump are getting these loans of buying convertibles and sports cars. It's just I don't know where that's going, but
yeah.
Charles, thanks so much for doing this interview. Sure people can check you out at charlesgoold.com. Anything else interesting coming in the next couple months that people should keep their eyes open for?
Well, first and foremost, the book, Two Sides of the Same Coin, our me and Jason Brown's book is definitely coming out. We're pushing for August 7th. We have all the real nitty-gritty of the book done. All the technique stuff is done. It's just we just got to get the all the little things like the bio and cover together. But it'll be a digital book you can get, and you can look on my Instagram handle, which is embarrassing, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Chuck Jeezy, spelled with a G. Or you can go over to Jason Brown's Instagram, Jason Brown Drums. If you are a drummer, you should definitely just check out his page anyway, because he's posting knowledge all the time, and it's super dope. So, that's you should definitely look out for that. I'm playing with Eric Wyatt at Smalls on August 11th, I believe. So keep an eye out for that. And yeah, I got a new parody I'm working on. I think you guys are gonna like. I'm pushing to finish it by August 9th because it's the birthday of the person whose song it is, so I want to do it for that. And I'm about to buy a bunch of gear and get my original funk album out there too. So that's what's going on.
Great, Charles. Well, thanks for doing this interview.
Yeah. Oh, one other thing. Sorry. So my roommates are actually like incredible sound engineers, and we have a studio basically in our living room. And so my father's group came over and we did a full quartet record, which is sounding amazing. It's got mixed, and you should be looking for that to come out as well. That Goold Quartet.
Great. Looking forward to that, man.
Yeah.